In this crazy world, it's so hard to unwind. So I'm taking time just for me. Gonna find my peace, let my soul be free. In the quiet moments, that's where I'll find a little room to breathe and leave it all behind. Give me room to breathe, I need some time to heal my heart, to clear my mind. Gonna love myself, yeah, I believe in the power of me. Just give me room to breathe.
Great new day to all my self-care friends and family. Welcome back to another Room to Breathe podcast. I am your host, Life Coach 614, and I am so thankful and grateful that you have made space to be here with us today. Now, before we jump into today's episode, I need you all to do me a quick favor. If you're feeling the vibes, go ahead and show us some love. Tap the screen, like, comment, share, right? Share this out with someone who needs a little healing energy today. And if this is your first time here or you haven't done so already, go ahead and hit that follow button. Be sure to subscribe to our channel so that way you're always tapped in when a new episode drops. I also want to invite you to visit our digital home at the selfcareclub.org, where you will find everything you need from affirmative apparel to motivational merch, as well as a ton of free resources to help nourish your growth and remind you that you are supported every step of the way. Just know that you don't have to do this alone. We are healing in community, growing one breath, one moment, one day at a time. So today, I encourage you to give yourself permission to pause, to reset, to make space for peace, for growth, but most importantly, room for you to breathe. And remember, if anything in today's conversation hits home, be sure to drop those green hearts in the chat. That is our community's way of saying I am healing, I am growing, and I am showing up for me. Now, let's get ready to breathe, reflect, and grow together. Family, listen, let me start things off by saying this ain't gonna be your usual Room to Breathe podcast, okay? Sometimes we need a little unhinged episode. And so today's episode, Elevated Awakenings, Monique, I see you in the house, girl. Today's episode is called Fuck It, Crash Out. And it is about the healing that nobody talks about. Okay, this is for my emotionally exhausted and slightly unhinged people. And let me just go ahead and say this before somebody, clips this out of context and starts acting brand new in the comments. Okay, this episode is not encouraging harm or violence or reckless behavior or self-destruction. We are talking about emotional exhaustion, burnout, nervous system overload, suppressed emotions, and what happens when people spend years swallowing their feelings just to survive. And so if you are someone who is struggling mentally, emotionally, or you feel unsafe in any way, please reach out to a licensed professional, a trusted support system, or, your crisis resources, because real healing sometimes requires real support. Now, with that being said, Nicole, welcome back. With that being said, let's talk about it. Okay? I guess I should just start by saying to y'all, some of y'all are not crazy. Okay? You are overstimulated, undersupported, emotionally constipated, sleep deprived, spiritually tired, financially stressed, trauma triggered, and one passive aggressive text away from saying, you know what? Fuck everybody. Right? Just fuck everybody. Right? Because listen, if we're being real, the world is ghetto. Right? Earth is ghetto. Everybody is overwhelmed. Everybody is performing wellness online while privately fighting their own, life emotionally. People are calling burnout being booked and busy. People are calling emotional suppression being strong. People are calling survival mode adulting. Meanwhile, folks are crying in Target parking lots, having anxiety attacks in bathroom stalls at work, doom scrolling at 2 a.m., laughing through depression, emotionally eating, emotionally shutting down, emotionally detaching, and saying it is what it is because they genuinely do not know how to process what they feel anymore. And then society wants to be all shocked when somebody finally crashes the fuck out. Like, be serious. Y'all be watching people go through it, right? We will watch, somebody else's betrayal, grief, childhood trauma, financial pressure, the toxic relationships, the family dysfunction, the damn loneliness, the burnout, the people pleasing, the survival mode, and like the emotional neglect, all at the same time, still expecting them to answer emails politely. It's like we watch it all because, listen, I'm here for it. I be here for the drama. But then society wants you to still be nice, still be, perfectly polished. But you're like, nah, fuck no. Like, I'm going through it. Life is taking me through there. And what's crazy is society only respects your pain when it's quiet, attractive, and convenient. You could be drowning silently for years and nobody checks in. But the very moment that your exhaustion becomes visible, now suddenly you doing too much, right? Now you're negative. Now you need help, right? How many times did they say that? She need help. Now everybody uncomfortable because you done crashed out. But maybe the real issue is that people are more comfortable watching you suffer quietly than watching you tell your truth loudly. Right? She said, clock it. And let me say this too. I think that social media made emotional crashing out look funny while simultaneously ignoring the very real emotional pain that's underneath it. Everything has become hashtag crash out season or hashtag villain era. We outside, I'm about to lose it. Or my favorite one that I see is we standing on business. And of course, when we see that, everybody's laughing, right? Everybody's reposting. Whitney, welcome back, beautiful. Elevated Awakenings. Right? So we see these hashtags, right? And so we laugh. We like, she crazy, right? We repost it. Everybody's joking about being one inconvenience away from a mental breakdown. But underneath all of that humor, some people are genuinely exhausted. Like that soul tired. Like, I don't know how much more I can carry without becoming somebody I don't recognize kind of tired. And instead of helping people regulate, society either mocks them or monetizes their breakdown. And see, that part bothers me because some people don't actually want chaos. They want relief. I got to say that louder for the people in the back. Some people don't want chaos. They want relief. Some people are not craving destruction. They're craving rest and safety and support and space and softness and honesty and peace. A chance to stop performing strength for 5 damn minutes. So today I want to flip the script on what people call crashing out. Because maybe some people aren't losing their minds, right? Maybe you're not losing it. As my sister said, going bonkers, right? She had to go bonkers. So maybe they're just finally losing their tolerance for self-abandonment. Maybe they're tired of suppressing everything. Maybe they're emotionally overloaded. Maybe their nervous system is screaming for care. Maybe their spirit is rejecting survival mode. And no, that does not excuse harmful behavior, but it does deserve a more honest conversation than us labeling the person as crazy. Because truthfully, Some of the people labeled unhinged are actually just emotionally exhausted people who have never learned healthy ways to release their pain. That's all it is. Right? And see, that's the healing that nobody talks about. Elevated awakenings, Shonda. Welcome back, sister girl. So let's just get into it. I think I want to start things off by just talking about how society only respects your pain when it's convenient for them. Right? Right. I know I'll be tired of pretending. Right? And so let's just go there, right? Because one thing that I've learned on my very intentional healing journey is that people love the version of you that suffers silently. Oh, they love that version, right? The version of you that still shows up, still answers texts, still helps everybody else. The version that still comes to work. She got good vibes. The one that says, I'm fine, and laughs it off. The one that still makes everybody comfortable while privately falling apart. That version, society rewards her, right? But the moment that, the very second that your pain, that your hurt becomes visible, the second that your exhaustion stops being digestible for other people, oh, now suddenly you're the problem. Now you're too emotional. You're doing too much. She's hard to deal with, right? Our favorite, she an angry Black woman, right? And so now everybody got advice instead of compassion. And honestly, that's why I think that so many people are emotionally dying in silence. Because somewhere along the way, people have learned that my pain is only acceptable if it stays quiet. And let's talk about how deeply toxic that is. People will literally watch somebody carry childhood trauma and family dysfunction, financial stress, relationship betrayal, grief, parenthood, burnout, anxiety, depression, spiritual exhaustion, and loneliness, all while still functioning. And instead of saying, damn, girl, you okay? Society says, well, at least they're handling it. She carries it well. And I'm like, handling it? Like, who's handling it? But, they think that since she can carry it all, she's handling it. But what they're actually doing is just surviving. And there's a difference, right? There's a difference. Functioning doesn't automatically mean healthy. Some of the most emotionally broken people are still very productive, right? Still attractive, still successful, still smiling online, right? They don't look like what they're going through. They're still showing up every day, encouraging everybody else while secretly begging life not to take them out mentally. And that's why I get irritated when people mock emotional reactions without asking what led to them. Because people love judging a reaction while ignoring pressure. You don't know how long somebody's been holding themselves together. You don't know what they're grieving privately. You don't know how many nights that they've cried in silence because they didn't want to burden anybody else. You don't know how exhausted they are from constantly being everybody else's safe space while having nowhere to feel safe, right? Nowhere to safely fall. But the moment they finally crack emotionally, suddenly everybody becomes a mental expert. And I just keep it scrolling. Like, that's why I be staying out the comments, y'all. Because I'll be like, girl, please. Like, you over here judging her. You over here judging him. You don't even know the story. Hell, I don't even know the story. But I think that, what social media has revealed to me is that some people are praised for being strong when really they just never had the luxury to fall apart safely. Right? Some people are praised for holding it all together, for, being the strong one. Meanwhile, that person just never had the privilege to fall apart. A lot of strong people are actually emotionally unsupported people living in survival mode because they were taught very early, don't cry too long, don't need too much, don't ask for help, right? Wasted wellness. Don't make people uncomfortable with your emotions. Don't be too difficult. Like I said, don't fall apart. You handle that shit. So they do. Until one day their body says, I cannot take this shit anymore. And now everybody want to say she done crashed out. But no, sometimes, that's just years of emotional suppression collecting interest. Miss Sherry, welcome back, beautiful. That is years of swallowing anger, swallowing grief, swallowing disrespect and disappointment, swallowing abandonment and burnout and loneliness. And eventually something has to come out. And honestly, I think that people get uncomfortable when emotionally exhausted people finally become honest, because honesty ruins performance, right? You can't keep pretending that everything's okay once your spirit gets tired enough. That's why some people disappear suddenly. That's why some people isolate. That's why some people stop answering phone calls and they go numb. That's why some people wake up one day and realize, I genuinely do not have the emotional capacity to keep carrying everybody else's shit while abandoning my own. And that realization right there will change your entire life. Because the truth is, a lot of people don't actually know how close they are to emotional burnout until they start fantasizing about running away from everybody and everything. Right? She said, I'm touching some feels. Listen, that's why I said we all need a little crash out moment. I mean, listen, raise your hand in the chat if you could honestly admit that at some point in life you have fantasized about just running away from everybody. Like just, y'all ever seen that gif where the man just walks out with his arms open and he just walks right out into the middle of the ocean? He's like, fuck it. Like I'm the fuck out of here. Right? As my sister said, you go on a fuck you tour where you're like, fuck you, fuck this, fuck that, fuck it all. Like, I just don't care. And it's, it's not because we hate life, right? It's because we're tired, deeply tired. And instead of receiving the care that we need and deserve, a lot of emotionally exhausted people receive judgment, right? And that's the part that breaks my heart. Because sometimes people don't need criticism, right? We need rest. We need support. We need safety and softness, space to be human without feeling like a burden to somebody. But society has conditioned us to believe that people are only valuable when they're useful. So the moment that your pain interrupts performance, people are suddenly inconvenienced by your humanity. And honestly, that's why so many people are out here emotionally unhinged and spiritually depleted now, right? Not because they're weak, but because they've been surviving in environments that only celebrate them when they're suffering quietly. That's why everybody crashing out at McDonald's, right? And we can even take this even deeper, because I know that some of y'all aren't angry, you're just tired. Right? And I really need people to understand this, because everything that looks like anger is not actually anger. Right? It's not actually anger. Sometimes it's exhaustion and a leather jacket. Sometimes it's grief with an attitude. Sometimes it's burnout with a sharp tongue. Sometimes it's years of emotional neglect finally saying, yeah, I can't keep doing this shit. And once I realized that, it changed how I viewed people completely. Because, some of y'all are not waking up every day choosing chaos, right? You're waking up already emotionally overloaded before the day even starts. I mean, I'll admit it. I can remember many days waking up and my nervous system was just tired. My brain tired. My spirit tired. My patience was hanging on by a thread and a prayer. I'm talking about patience was holding on to that mustard seed so tight And then, when you're going through all of this and life is already heavy, then people want to hit you with things saying like, oh, you changed, you being mean now. You don't have the same energy. You ain't have to go off on me like that. Yeah, the fuck I did. I'm tired. And honestly, a lot of people have normalized survival mode so much that they genuinely cannot recognize burnout anymore unless somebody completely falls apart publicly. But we have to understand that burnout doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes burnout simply looks like not texting people back because every conversation feels emotionally expensive. Sometimes burnout looks like staring at the wall at work because your brain can't process one more thing. Sometimes burnout looks like irritability, brain fog, random crying, emotional numbness, feeling disconnected from yourself, being, touched out, being overstimulated by noise, wanting everybody to leave you the fuck alone, or just fantasizing about disappearing for a week just to breathe. And, let's tell the truth. Again, some of y'all aren't lazy. You're just emotionally overloaded. There's a difference, right? Society shames exhaustion unless it's attached to physical illness. You gotta damn near collapse before people believe that you actually need rest. And honestly, that's sick, right? Why do I have to be sick to take a day off? I mean, people literally brag about functioning on stress like it's a personality trait. I only slept 3 hours last night. Y'all know that used to be me, right? I was team no sleep. No, I was team stress the fuck out. And I just didn't know how to say it. But we think it's a flex to say, I've been working nonstop, or I've been running on fumes. I'm barely holding it together. And everybody just laughs like it's normal. But no, that's just survival mode being normalized. Welcome back, Z. And a lot of emotionally exhausted people are trying to function in environments that never feel emotionally safe. And when you realize that, that changes you. Because being in constant stress changes you. Being emotionally unsupported changes you. Always having to be strong changes you. Never feeling safe to fully exhale changes you. Some people have been in fight or flight mode for so long that peace literally feels suspicious now. Girl, if you don't prepare the others, Shamika, talk about 400 hours of PTO. PTO stands for prepare the others. And honey, you ain't got to take a trip. How many people thought that like with your vacation time, like were you the ones like me who saved it until you could actually take a trip? My husband will tell you, I did not use vacation time, PTO time, sick time. Like I did not use that time until I met him. And I'd be like, oh, I'm not really feeling good today. And my husband used to be like, why are you getting dressed for work? Well, because I got to go to work. I'll be okay. I got this deadline to do. He'd be like, you just told me you don't feel good. He like, you look sick, babe. Why are you going to work? And I'm like, oh no, I just got to go to work. And he'd be like, don't you have vacation time? Don't you have sick time? And then one day he just looked at me and he said, you do know that if you die before the funeral, they'll have somebody doing your job, right? And I just stopped like, well, that's fucked up. But then I sat with that like, that's fucked up, And I had to start calling off like, because I'm not about to sit here and keep running myself crazy. That stress, that feeling like you have to be on. And y'all listen, the funny thing is that same job that I was going to sick, right? Never taking a day off. That is the same job that eliminated my position on numerous occasions. You know what I'm saying? Like I've had my position outsourced. And then I had to teach my replacement. Like how funny is that? I trained my replacement. But the the day I finally just walked away from a corporate job was when they said, "Oh, we're eliminating your position." Do you know how that made me feel? Like, let's talk about that shit for a second. Let's get it straight. I didn't like the job. Like, okay. I didn't necessarily like the job because it wasn't fulfilling me. You know what I mean? I had already started the Room to Breathe project and the self-care club and all that. So my heart was already gravitating in one particular direction. God had already put a calling on me. I was just being a little disobedient and still trying to work because, you know, we like that dependable paycheck. We like that every 2-week check. And I was like, hold on, God, like I got faith, but like not that much faith. Like, I don't know what you asking me to do yet. I got questions. So I was still being a little disobedient, right? Sitting on the fence. But anyway, so with it, I knew that I wasn't going to walk away from the job unless I lost the job, right? So when they told me that they eliminated my position, at first I was like, why am I feeling some sort of way? Like, why is this making me emotional? Because I don't even like the job. I don't really even want the job, but it doesn't fulfill me. But when I sat with that, and it was really the word eliminated. Like, I ain't been showing up in this position for the last few years, sick, tired, working overtime, you know, taken away from my family, this, that, and the other for this job, for y'all to just come to tell me, oh, we're eliminating the position. Because what the fuck have I been doing for the last few years? So now all of a sudden, you mean to tell me that what I'm doing doesn't matter anymore because you're just getting rid of it? So think about like how that changes a person. All while you're already under the constant stress of things. All while being emotionally unsupported. And then you start to realize, damn, I've been doing too much. And I used to be offended when people would be like, damn, you're doing too much, or you need to rest, you need to do this. And I used to be like, get out my business. But now I realize I was doing too much for too many people. I was devoted to too many causes that weren't my business. I was too busy worried about growing somebody else's business when that wasn't none of my business. See, disobedience will get you, right? Because I knew that that's not what I was supposed to be doing. I knew it, but I had to sit with that for a minute. I had to make that sting. And I think that's why God lined it up for my position to be eliminated, because he knew that word was going to trigger me in that season, in that moment. He knew that I had to get sat down and smacked in the face. And I was like, never again. Bet you I won't do that. Exactly. Have several seats. And so, yeah, you know, I think that in going through all of this and, you know, being in that fight or flight mode for so long, you know, now that's why peace feels so suspicious to us. That's why some folks are out here self-sabotaging calm situations. That's why some people pick arguments during peaceful moments. That's why some people struggle to trust healthy love. It's me. I'm some people, right? That's why rest makes some of us anxious, because survival mode has become our normal over the years. And as I even just look back and reflect on my life and things that I've been through, you know, now it's like sometimes I find myself crying for the little girl, crying for the teen Shantae, the young adult Shantae. Because when I look back at my life and the way that I felt like, you know, I was just conditioned by society, I'm like, it's just heartbreaking. You know, and now in the work that I do, you know, just sitting back and observing people, I realize that some people genuinely do not know who they are outside of their struggle, because they've spent so much time surviving that they forgot how to live. And honestly, that's why little things, you know, be triggering these big emotional reactions sometimes. It's not always about the small thing itself. You know, the small thing just touched a giant pile of unresolved emotional weight underneath it. That text message wasn't just a text message. That disappointment wasn't just one disappointment. That argument wasn't just an argument, right? Some of it is years of accumulated exhaustion, screaming, I don't have anything, and I mean absolutely nothing left. And I want to make sure that I say this carefully because accountability still matters. Being emotionally exhausted does not give anybody permission to hurt people. Let's be clear. I think that this is where that phrase hurt people come from. But I'm not saying that I want us to have permission to, hurt people. Healing is not an excuse to become harmful. Trauma is not a free pass for toxicity. Burnout doesn't justify abuse. But understanding why people are emotionally reactive sometimes creates space for compassion instead of immediate condemnation. Because truthfully, a lot of adults are emotionally dehydrated. Nobody taught them emotional regulation. Nobody modeled healthy communication. Nobody taught them how, anything about like nervous system care. Nobody taught them how to process their emotions safely. Because again, we were conditioned to, people please. We learned suppression at an early age. We were taught overfunctioning, emotional shutdown, avoidance, performance. And now we are just, adults out here trying to hold ourselves together with motivational quotes and caffeine and dark humor and one good cry every 3 business months. And maybe that's why this whole crash out conversation matters to me, right? Because I think that people are not asking for attention. They're asking for relief. Relief from carrying everybody emotionally. Relief from pretending that they're okay. Relief from always being the responsible one. Relief from survival mode. Relief from being the strong one for everybody while secretly falling apart internally. And honestly, some people don't need another lecture about calming down. Can I just say on a side note, I really fucking hate when people tell me to calm down. Because like a surefire way to turn me up is to tell me to calm down. Because like, who the fuck are you talking to? Like, don't tell me to calm down. I don't need to be told to calm down. What I need is rest, right? What I need is honesty. I need support. I need boundaries. I need softness. I need community. I need permission to stop performing strength every single second of the fucking day. So no, we're not angry people. We tired people. Deeply tired people. But the internet has made emotional dysregulation look cool. Right? Social media then turned emotional instability into a whole aesthetic. Everybody in their villain era. Right? Everybody outside. We outside, y'all. We crashing out. We standing on business. Everybody posting things like, don't text me before I crash out. One more thing and I'm going to jail. I think I'm about to lose it. Right? And listen, I get it. I understand humor. I understand memes. I understand using jokes to survive hard things. Because honestly, sometimes that's all we got. And from my perspective, Black people especially have been turning pain into humor for decades just to survive reality. So this is not me acting holier than thou because y'all, I laugh too, right? If y'all follow me on Instagram and y'all be watching my stories, y'all know I laugh too. That's where my little unhinged self hangs out. But at some point we got to admit a lot of what's being normalized online is actually emotional dysregulation disguised as entertainment. And that's uncomfortable because some people are not unhinged in a, funny little quirky way. Some people are genuinely overwhelmed and mentally spiraling in real time while strangers egg it on for content. And that's scary when you really think about it. People are literally recording themselves crying and screaming and breaking down, exposing trauma, threatening people, self-sabotaging publicly. And instead of support, the comments be like, 8, real, you so me, hashtag current mood. What? Like, I think that part of the problem is that social media rewards reaction more than it rewards regulation. Calm doesn't go viral. Healing doesn't go viral. Trust me. Okay? Boundaries don't always go viral. But emotional chaos, toxicity, the internet love that shit. The algorithm eats emotional insensitivity alive, baby. That's why people can quietly go to therapy for 6 months and nobody will notice. But one emotional breakdown online and millions of views overnight. And honestly, I think that some people have unconsciously learned that pain gets more attention when it's loud. Thank you for the follow, Juice. Right? So now, instead of processing emotions privately and safely, everything has become a performance. Because you're right, wasted wellness, that's what the algorithm wants. Every argument gets posted online. Every disappointment becomes a public announcement. Every emotional reaction becomes content. And you know, the dangerous part is that some folks genuinely don't know how to feel emotions anymore without an audience attached to it. Y'all seen the creators where as soon as something happens in their life that's real, they go online like, okay, chat. Right? Chat. Let me tell y'all what happened today. No. Live your life. You know, there's a difference between expressing pain and performing pain. One is healing. One keeps you emotionally trapped in the identity of being wounded. Sometimes, you know, social media accidentally encourages people to stay emotionally activated instead of emotionally regulated. Roxy said, I saw that title and was like, yeah, girl, listen, because fuck it. Crash out. Right? People start building online, you know, like entire online identities around being hurt and angry and toxic, detached, crazy, right? Emotionally unavailable or always crashing out. And after a while, you stop asking, how do I heal this? And you start asking, how do I maintain this version of myself that people are responding to? And see, that's a very dangerous territory. I can admit, as a content creator, for a minute, I was like, ooh, how do I get the people, right? What do I got to do for the likes? What do I got to do for the follows? How do I get people to subscribe? Oh, I got to be a little toxic. I got to get a little messy. I got to go hang out with this, right? Because if I share my pain and I'm up here and I'm crying and I'm this and I'm that, then, you know, the people that will follow, I'll get the views, I'll get the attention. Because that's what people like. That's what the algorithm wants, right? So I got to feed the beast. But see, the scary thing about that is that pain can become addictive when attention gets attached to it. And honestly, I think that a lot of people are emotionally exhausted because they never unplug long enough to actually hear themselves think. The internet keeps people stimulated constantly, right? The noise, the drama, the opinions, the trauma dumping, the bad news, the arguments, the comparison, the negativity, the performative healing, right? Everybody branding themselves as a therapist after reading 2 Instagram captions and surviving one situation. Y'all, when I first started healing out loud, you know, some of you know how I got my start, but I'll tell the story anyway, because that's what I do. So anyways, when I first started on TikTok, I literally was here during the pandemic teaching the girls how to do their nails, right? Because the nail salon shut down and we didn't know what the hell to do. And I was like, I could teach y'all how to do your nails at home. And so my content, I was diva dipped, y'all. I had a whole dip nail business and I taught the girls how to do their nails during the pandemic. So during that time, just like when you go to the salon or get your nails done, your hair done, whatever, we just had conversations. So we just had very real conversations and we had a ball, right? Whitney, you know what I'm talking about, girl? So listen, during that time, I realized that I'm not the only person who was going through some things and that we needed a safe space. And so people were like, oh, you should be a life coach. And I'm like, you tripping. Because y'all know during the pandemic, there were 1,000,000,001 life coaches out there. I was like, I know you lying. Okay, what I really said was, I know you fucking lying. Because everybody a life coach today. Like, what is that? Like, is that a real thing? So I had to start doing the research and I'm like, oh, it is a real thing, but not all of these people are the real thing. Got it. So before I call myself a life coach, right? Before we shift from Diva Dip to Life Coach 614, I need to get training. Because clearly I've been a life coach my entire life. But I was like, I need to go get training. I need to go get the backing behind it. So when I change my name to Life Coach 614, I need to know that I did the work, right? I need to know. And so, with that, I was just like, okay, I want to be the real deal. I don't want to be, one of these fake coaches. She said, yeah, you followed me back then. Yeah, listen, we've been rocking together since the 2020s. But it's like, I realized, I could do this. And because I was able to see the things that other people were going through, and I was able to call it out and see it from a different perspective, not, being another consumer or person wrapped up in the algorithm. I could see it from the other side. You know what I mean? And for years, I've always been the one to play devil's advocate, right? Somebody tell me something and I'm like, well, what about this? And they'd be like, oh, what if it doesn't work? And I'm like, what if it does work? You know what I mean? So that's always how I've been. Hey, Tasha, welcome back, beautiful. But again, that's how I came to be. And like I said, there are a lot of people, and you have to be really careful out there. There are a lot of people who are branding themselves as coaches or therapists just because they done set in a few Room to Breathe podcasts, And I'm like, I know I be saying some real shit, but like, listening to me don't make you a life coach. You got to go get your own healing. You got to go get your own, education with it. But I mean, again, when I just sit back and look at all of the mess out there, I'm like, it's too much. People are consuming everybody else's emotional chaos while privately drowning in their own. And, that's what creates that emotional numbness after a while. That's why so many people can laugh at things online that would devastate them in real life. The constant overstimulation desensitizes people emotionally. That's why people just sit back and watch people suffer instead of actually reaching out to help. How many times do you see like an emergency situation? Something could be on fire. It could be a car accident. And everybody got all these different POV videos, but nobody actually ran to help the person. And I love that people do work in the community, especially when, they reach out to the homeless or the displaced community and they give back. But why you got to record it? Like, if you want to record the fact that you are feeding the community, give me the behind the scenes of you putting the meals together. Let me see the work that goes into what you do. I don't always have to see you pull up and hand someone who's displaced or homeless a meal. And now you done put all their business out there. Because I just want to know, do these people be signing disclaimers? The algorithm has made us so desensitized to just common human decency, common courtesy. And I think that that's why so many people feel disconnected from themselves now, because nobody ever gets quiet. We get distracted, right? Everybody's scrolling, everybody's reacting. We're overstimulated. Everybody's watching, everybody else crash out while ignoring their own emotional state. Meanwhile, our nervous system is begging for some silence. A lot of toxic coping mechanisms are relatable, but that doesn't automatically, make them healing. Hyper independence is relatable. Emotional shutdown is relatable. Avoidance is relatable. Overworking, self-sabotage, and toxic relationships, they're all relatable. Still very much unhealthy. And sometimes I think that people confuse being understood with being healed. Those are not the same thing. Just because millions of people can relate to burnout doesn't mean burnout should become your personality. Just because people understand your pain doesn't mean that you should stay emotionally stuck there forever. Healing eventually requires accountability. Healing eventually requires stillness. Healing eventually requires honesty beyond performance. Because truthfully, some people are constantly crashing out online because offline they feel invisible. And see that right there? That's the conversation that nobody wants to really have. Some people don't need more attention. They need more connection. They need a real connection, a safe connection, a grounded connection, the kind that exists without algorithms and validation and likes and reposts and comments and shares. Because attention can temporarily soothe your loneliness, but it can't heal emotional abandonment. And maybe that's why so many people still feel empty after they go viral. Because visibility is not the same thing as healing. Visibility is not the same thing as healing. And honestly, I think some of the strongest healing happens offline. In the quiet moments, in the therapy sessions, in the prayer, in the journaling, in the rest, in the accountability and the boundaries, and in choosing not to react when every triggered part of you wants to lose its shit. That kind of healing probably won't go viral, but it might save your life. Now, let's talk, let's really, really talk about the part that people avoid because it makes people uncomfortable. Some of y'all think that you're losing your mind when really your nervous system is just overwhelmed as hell. Okay? Because emotional exhaustion is not just being tired, right? It is deeper than that. So I need people to stop minimizing what chronic stress actually does to the body and the mind. If, it's your body sounding alarms that you've ignored for too long. It's your spirit screaming for care while your mouth keeps saying, I'm good. I'm fine. It's whatever. I got it. Meanwhile, internally, you're hanging on by a thread and a playlist. And I think that the scary part is that a lot of emotionally exhausted people don't even realize how bad it's gotten because survival mode has become their personality. You become so used to functioning in dysfunction that peace starts to feel unfamiliar. That's why some of y'all can't even relax fully anymore. You finally sit down to rest and suddenly your thoughts start racing. Your chest is tight. You're feeling guilty for not being productive. And your brain is replaying conversations from 2007. You are emotionally spiraling over something that somebody said 3 days ago. And that's not just overthinking. That is a dysregulated nervous system. I wish people talked more openly about how burnout can make you feel emotionally disconnected from yourself. Because burnout doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it just looks like forgetting simple things, struggling to respond to texts, being emotionally numb, random crying spells, irritability, the brain fog, wanting isolation, feeling overstimulated by noise, having no patience left. For some people, it looks like emotional eating, emotionally shutting down, doom scrolling at 3 a.m. because your brain won't shut the fuck up. And, some of y'all are calling yourselves lazy when actually you're just experiencing a mental overload. People will shame themselves for struggling while carrying levels of stress that their body was never meant to hold alone. And let's talk about how emotional exhaustion can literally change the way you interact with people. You stop having energy to fake it. Your tolerance gets lower. You become more sensitive to disrespect. Certain conversations start feeling draining. People who only, take from you start irritating your spirit quicker. And now that shift is not always a bad thing, because sometimes exhaustion exposes what your healed self no longer has the capacity for. And yeah, that one right there, that's real. Because sometimes what people are, when people call or say that you're changing, what that really is you becoming too tired to keep betraying yourself. You finally realize that I actually do not have the emotional capacity to keep overextending myself for people who barely pour into me. And suddenly, when folks call you distant, right? No, what I am is depleted. There's a difference, right? And let me say this too, because this matters. Constant emotional survival changes the body. People really underestimate what chronic stress does physically, because emotionally overwhelmed people for years, when you're emotionally overwhelmed for years, it starts to affect your sleep, your appetite, your hormones, your focus, your patience, your immune system, your energy, your memory, your emotional regulation, your relationships, your sense of safety. That's why some people feel exhausted even after resting physically. Keith No Sweat. Hey, bro. Hey, thank you for the heartbeat. Right? Physical sleep does not automatically heal emotional exhaustion. You can sleep 8 hours and still wake up emotionally tired if your spirit never feels safe enough to fully exhale. And that kind of tiredness, that's the kind that people don't understand unless they've lived it. The I don't even know where to begin fixing myself kind of tired. The everything feels heavy right now kind of tired. The I'm functioning but barely kind of tired. And honestly, I think that a lot of people are silently grieving versions of themselves that they lost in survival mode, right? That soft version, the creative version, the joyful version, the emotionally available version. Because survival will make you practical before it makes you peaceful. And after years of carrying, too much, some people genuinely don't know how to relax without feeling unsafe. That's trauma. That is burnout. That is emotional overload. And let's stop acting like somebody has, equal emotional support systems, right? Some people don't have safe families. Like, let's just be honest. Some people don't have safe families. Some people don't have healthy relationships. Some people are parenting while emotionally broken themselves. Some people are grieving privately while still expected to function publicly. And all society has to say is stay positive. Like, if you don't sit the fuck down, stay positive. That's why I get irritated when people mock emotional reactions without considering the emotional accumulation. Because the truth is, most breakdowns did not start the day they became visible. Most breakdowns started long before the public moment. That crying spell wasn't just about today. That anger wasn't just about today. That shutdown wasn't just about today. Sometimes it is years of emotional suppression finally overflowing. And honestly, I think that some people are terrified of slowing down because they know that once they stop moving, they're going to feel everything that they've been avoiding. That's why people stay busy. They stay distracted. overstimulated. You stay online and you're overworking and you're constantly people pleasing, right? We stay fixing everybody else because silence forces honesty. And some people have spent their entire lives avoiding themselves emotionally. But eventually, your body starts collecting the bill for all of those emotions that your mind can't outrun. That's why healing requires more than motivational quotes and good vibes only, right? Healing requires honesty, rest, boundaries, regulation, support, community, self-awareness, accountability, compassion for the version of you that survived in the only way that you knew how. Brother, welcome back. So yeah, some of y'all aren't crazy. You're just emotionally exhausted people trying to function in a world that rarely slows down long enough to ask you, are you actually okay? And listen, y'all, my crash out used to look different. Okay? This is the part where healing humbled me. Because if I'm being honest, younger me thought that crashing out meant proving a point. Right? I used to think that my emotional intensity automatically meant emotional honesty. So my version of crashing out looked like over-explaining, arguing, writing paragraphs because, baby, I got to prove a point and you're going to get this message. Trying to make people understand my pain, trying to defend my heart, right? Trying to explain something that hurt me, trying to force accountability out of emotional, unavailable people. And let me tell you the truth. Some of us, we weren't fighting because we love drama. We were fighting because we felt unseen. I know that's what my fight was all about. I felt unseen and unheard. So I was like, damn it, I got something to say. A lot of emotionally reactive people aren't evil. They're just unheard. Again, I felt unseen and unheard. So I had to raise my voice a little bit louder because, damn it, you're going to hear what I got to say. And I know you see me. But sometimes that anger is just coming from years of feeling dismissed, misunderstood, minimized, ignored, talked over, emotionally neglected. So when people finally start to express themselves, everything just comes all out at once. Not because we want chaos, but because we never learned healthy emotional release. And honestly, like I said, that was me for a long time. I thought that if I explained myself better, people would finally care. That if I just loved harder, people would finally choose me correctly. That if I stayed long enough, people would finally understand my heart. But healing taught me, a very hard truth. Everybody is not emotionally equipped to hold your vulnerability properly. That lesson right there almost took me out, y'all. Because, I had realized that some people will watch you emotionally bleed in front of them and still only care about how inconvenient your pain is to them. And see, once I realized that, my whole definition of crashing out changed, because now I don't have the same energy, desire, or capacity to argue my worth anymore. See, the healed version of me hits different. Now my crash out looks like withdrawing my access. It looks like choosing silence, protecting my peace, going missing to recalibrate. It looked like taking naps and logging off and going to therapy, praying instead of reacting, telling God to get his kids, because if I do it, I'm going to jail, right? I block without an announcement. I say no without a 5-page explanation attached to it, right? Y'all know my crash out looks so good that on Wednesdays are my healing days, because it's right in the middle of the week, y'all, right? So I take Wednesdays just for me. No clients, no interviews, no recordings. It's just me. I come in, I do my job with the podcast, I go to fuck home. I ain't got it to do. That's my crash out now. My crash out looks like taking 1 month off every 3 months to do whatever the fuck I want to do when I want to do it, right? Because that's what my crash out looks like now. And honestly, that version saved me, because younger me thought that, the closure came from finally being understood, but healed me learned that closure sometimes comes from accepting that people, fully understood what they were doing in that moment and simply didn't care enough to do better. And yeah, that stung a little, right? And when you think about it, I know it stings a little. Exactly, sis. I know it stings a little because a lot of people, a lot of us exhaust ourselves trying to communicate with people who benefit from misunderstanding us. That's why healing changes your relationships with emotional labor. You stop feeling responsible for making everybody else understand your boundaries. Y'all know that song by Doja Cat? It lives rent free in my mind. And she's always like, bitch, I said what I said. Like, so when I say something, when I set a boundary, when I draw a line with somebody, that song always clicks in my head. And I'm just like, bitch, I said what I said. Because now I don't feel responsible to make everybody understand my boundaries. Right? Now, all of a sudden, when you start doing your healing, you stop over explaining why something hurt. You stop chasing accountability from people committed to avoiding it. You stop trying to drag emotional maturity from other grown people. And that frees you, right? Because one thing about emotionally exhausted people is a lot of exhaustion comes from constantly trying to emotionally process situations for people who refuse to process it themselves. Some of y'all are just tired because you keep doing the emotional homework for the emotional lazy people in your life. You keep translating your pain into softer language, hoping that they'll finally give a damn. You keep minimizing your feelings to avoid conflict. You keep making yourself emotionally digestible for people who were never trying to understand you in the first place. And eventually, your spirit gets tired of shrinking. And see, that's when the shift happens. That's when you finally realize that I don't actually have to keep proving my worth, right? I don't have to keep proving that I'm worthy of respect. And honestly, healing made me realize that not every emotional reaction deserves access to me anymore. Every text does not deserve a response. Every misunderstanding does not deserve clarification. Every disrespectful interaction does not deserve my emotional energy. Emotionally exhausted people often feel obligated to emotionally manage everybody else's comfort. Meanwhile, nobody's managing theirs. And see, that imbalance will literally drain the life out of you. I don't mean figuratively. It will literally drain the life out of you. And let's talk about how healing changes the way you respond to your triggers too. Because we all got triggers. Everybody has a trigger. See, younger me, triggered meant reactive. But now this healing version of me, triggered means pause. Pause and ask, why did that affect me so hard? What part of me feels unsafe right now? Is this situation actually dangerous, or is this just emotionally familiar? See, that kind of self-awareness changes everything, right? Sometimes your reaction is not just about the current moment. Sometimes your nervous system is responding to old wounds wearing new faces. And healing teaches you how to separate what's happening now from what happened then. But see, that's the deep work. That's the uncomfortable work. That's the kind of healing that nobody claps for online, because it happens internally. And honestly, I think that one of the biggest signs of growth is when your definition of power changes. Because see, younger me thought that power meant winning the argument, being understood, having the last word, and making people regret hurting me. That's what power used to mean to me. But now, peace feels more powerful than proving a point. Protecting my nervous system feels more powerful than emotional revenge. Walking away feels more powerful than entertaining emotional chaos. Boundaries feel more powerful than begging. And see, that version of me sleeps better now. Because healing eventually teaches you that every battle doesn't deserve your nervous system. Every battle does not deserve your nervous system. Some people are not worth the emotional relapse. Some conversations are not worth the dysregulation. Some relationships cost too much mentally to maintain. And, emotionally exhausted people especially need to learn that. Because when you've spent so much of your life surviving emotionally, peace starts becoming sacred. It's like you stop craving intensity, you stop romanticizing struggle, you stop confusing chaos with connection. And I think that might be one of the biggest flips in my healing journey. My crash out no longer looks like destruction. Now it looks like choosing myself before I completely lose myself, trying to save everybody else. I genuinely think that we have become a society that is quicker to judge emotional pain than to support it. People will literally see somebody unraveling in real time, and instead of asking them, are they okay? You say, what's wrong with you? And honestly, that mentality is part of the reason why so many people are suffering silently now, because vulnerability stopped feeling safe for a lot of people. People learned real quick that the moment your pain becomes inconvenient, the empathy disappears. As long as you're the strong friend, everybody loves you. As long as you're giving advice, being dependable, and showing up, pouring into everybody else and holding space, being the helper and the peacemaker and the emotionally available one, people will celebrate you. But the very second you become the one struggling, now suddenly folks are uncomfortable. People disappear. They act awkward around you. Now people hit you with, just pray about it. Pray about it. Stay positive. It could be worse. You'll be okay. But some of us don't need another inspirational quote. Have an amazing day, Z. Thank you. I know me. I don't need another inspirational quote. I need support. I need real support. Not performative check-ins. Not let me know if you need anything with no actual intention behind it. Not surface level concern that disappears in 2 days. I'm talking about real human support. The kind that says, you don't have to carry this alone. The kind that lets people be honest without immediately trying to fix them. The kind that doesn't shame people for not functioning perfectly while overwhelmed. And let's just tell the truth. A lot of emotionally exhausted people are used to being everybody else's support system while secretly having none of their own. That's why some strong people crash hard when they finally break down. Because they weren't just carrying their own pain, they were carrying everybody else's too. The strong friend, the strong parent, the strong sibling, the strong leader, the strong partner, the strong healer. But strong people get tired too. I think that some of the strongest people are actually some of the most emotionally neglected people, because everybody assumes that you got it, that you're good, that you'll figure it out. Meanwhile, that person is silently drowning. And the crazy part is some people become the strong one because they never had a choice. Nobody checked on them growing up. Nobody protected them emotionally. Nobody taught them softness. Nobody made space for their feelings. So they learn, survive first, feel later. And now They're adults functioning from emotional survival patterns that were never meant to become a permanent part of their lifestyle. And that's why compassion matters so much to me now. Once you understand trauma and burnout and grief and emotional neglect, right? You stop viewing people as crazy so quickly. Not because accountability disappears, but because context matters. Compassion doesn't mean tolerating abuse. It doesn't mean staying in harmful situations, and it does not mean excusing toxic behavior. But it does mean recognizing the emotionally overwhelmed people and that they are still human beings who deserve dignity, because that matters. Some people have genuinely never experienced emotional safety before. Never felt fully seen, fully appreciated, emotionally protected. Never felt safe expressing emotions without punishment and rejection and criticism or abandonment attached to it. So now as adults, we are surrounded by people who are struggling with communication, struggle with trust, struggling with emotional regulation and vulnerability, or even just asking for help, because society's response is to get over it. But healing doesn't work like that. You cannot shame people into emotional wellness. I think that a lot of people are emotionally exhausted because they spend their entire lives trying to earn love and care and support that they should have received freely. That realization alone will break your heart. Some people are overachievers because they're just trying to feel worthy. Some people overgive because they fear abandonment. Some people please because conflict feels emotionally unsafe. And so some people just stay strong because vulnerability was weaponized or used against them. And shit like that runs deep. And instead of compassion, society just labels you as difficult, sensitive, emotional, needy, or you just being extra, doing too much. Meanwhile, these people are functioning with emotional wounds that nobody can physically see. But we have to understand that invisible pain is dangerous because people underestimate it. People take emotional exhaustion lightly until it turns into a panic attack and burnout, breakdowns, depression, isolation, chronic stress, right? So you had a heart attack, that stroke, you experience some sort of physical illness or a complete nervous system collapse. Then suddenly everybody wants to care after the damage has become visible. And see, that part, honestly, y'all, it pisses me off. It just makes me so angry, because why do people have to completely fall apart before they deserve softness? Why do people have to reach a breaking point before somebody finally says, you've been carrying too much? And honestly, I think that emotionally exhausted people don't always need solutions immediately. Sometimes they just need permission. Permission to rest. Permission to say no. Permission to stop overperforming. Permission to stop saving everybody. Permission to admit that they're not okay. Permission to need support too. Because some people have spent so much of their lives surviving that they genuinely feel guilty for receiving care. And maybe that's why community matters so much, right? I mean, healthy community, safe community, authentic community. Not spaces where people are only showing up for entertainment or trauma gossip, right? But spaces where people can breathe honestly without feeling ashamed to be human. Because truthfully, some people don't need judgment. We just need rest, right? We need permission to just breathe and just be. But you don't need to self-destruct to validate your pain. I think this is the most important part of this whole conversation. And I know and today I don't care. Okay, just ride with me, y'all. Because I need somebody to understand this deep in their spirit. You do not have to destroy yourself to prove that you're hurting. You don't need to ruin your life, ruin your peace, ruin your future, ruin your healing, or ruin yourself emotionally just because you're overwhelmed. And honestly, I think that a lot of people confuse emotional intensity with emotional truth. Like, if they're not screaming and spiraling and breaking down in public, that somehow their pain isn't real enough. Thank you so much. I appreciate you being here. I think that, you know, this is something that society gets wrong all the time, right? People wait until somebody completely falls apart before finally validating their suffering. Now, suddenly it's, oh my God, we had no idea. She seemed fine yesterday. I cannot believe he went postal. He was, you know, if he would have just said something, we would have helped. Meanwhile, the signs have been there the whole time. People just didn't take it seriously because the person was still functioning. And honestly, that's why so many emotionally exhausted people feel like they have to reach this catastrophic level before anybody finally notices that they're struggling. That mentality is dangerous because pain deserves care before destruction enters the picture. Not after the breakdown, not after the public fallout, not after somebody completely loses their shit and crashes out. Before. And I wish that more people understood that choosing not to self-destruct is actually one of the hardest forms of healing. Because let me tell you something. Sometimes reacting is easier. Sometimes losing your shit and exploding is easier. Sometimes crashing out in public is easier. Sometimes saying fuck everybody feels easier. Sometimes self-sabotaging feels easier. Sometimes returning to toxic shit feels easier, especially when you're hurt. Especially when you feel unseen. Especially when you're emotionally overwhelmed and you're tired of carrying everybody else's shit by yourself. But healing asks you, what's going to happen after we react? Because some reactions might feel temporary, right? It may feel temporarily relieving, but they leave permanent consequences. And see, one thing that healing has taught me is that temporary emotional relief is not always worth the long-time emotional damage. Because emotionally exhausted people are especially vulnerable to impulsive decisions when they finally hit that overload. And that is why regulation matters. Not suppression, not pretending, not bottling everything up, but regulation. The ability to pause long enough and ask, what does this version of me need right now? Not what my ego wants, not what my anger wants, not what the wounded little girl inside me wants, but what does my healing need? Sometimes healing needs expression, but sometimes it also needs restraint. And that balance is hard as hell. Like, I'm not even going to lie to you. Because some of us are carrying a rage that has been building and brewing inside of us for years. Rage from abandonment, from betrayal, from being constantly overlooked, from, constantly having to survive. Rage from being everybody's emotional support system while secretly feeling unsupported. See, suppressed anger eventually turns into something. And it looks different for all of us. Sometimes it's anxiety, numbness, depression, bitterness, emotional shutdown, explosive reactions. That's why healthy emotional release is so important. It matters. Thank you for the follow. So cry, journal, go to therapy, pray, get physically active, set your boundaries, have the honest conversations, get your rest, enjoy your silence and the solitude, right? Tap back into your creativity, the music, the art. Engage with your safe communities. Because if emotions don't move through you, they start controlling you. And let's be honest, a lot of adults were never taught emotional regulation growing up. They were taught suppression. We all have heard, stop crying, calm down, you're too sensitive. So now as adults, with big emotions and no healthy roadmap to process them, we don't know what to do. We just simply don't know what to do. So many of us end up staying in, draining environments for too long. We stay in toxic relationships too long. We stay accessible for people too long. We constantly keep overgiving for too long. But I want you to know that your spirit was never designed to survive constant emotional chaos forever. That's not what God made you for. That's not what he made you for. And so, healing eventually forces you to say, what if love was never supposed to cost me my peace? See, that's a life-changing question right there. What if love was never supposed to cost me my peace? Healing says I refuse to lose myself just because life hurt me. And that takes strength. Real strength. Not survival strength. Not I'm fine strength, but like real grounded strength. And when you think about the whole crash out, right? Maybe it's not really a crash out. Maybe this isn't a breakdown. Maybe it's an awakening. Right? And I don't know if you've made it this far in the conversation, maybe this is the part that you actually need. Because just maybe this thing that we keep calling a crash out isn't actually our lives falling apart. Maybe it's your soul finally refusing to keep surviving in ways that are destroying you quietly. Because I think that a lot of people mistake awakening for chaos at first. When you start realizing that you're unhappy, you're emotionally exhausted, you're outgrowing certain people, you're tired of overperforming, tired of carrying everybody, tired of abandoning yourself and pretending, that realization can be uncomfortable because awareness disrupts denial. And listen, once you become aware, it is really hard to go back to pretending you don't see that shit. That's why some people feel emotionally overwhelmed during their healing seasons. You start noticing things differently. It's like you start going to therapy and all of a sudden you start looking around and seeing all the fake support, the one-sided conversations, the emotional manipulations, the environments that drain your spirit. You leave the Room to Breathe podcast and suddenly you start seeing all the people who only love the useful version of you, the habits that are keeping you stuck, the ways that you betray yourself for acceptance, the survival patterns that you normalize. And, honestly, that level of awareness can feel like emotional chaos before it starts to look like freedom. Because now you have to decide, am I going to continue shrinking to survive, or am I finally going to get up and choose me? And let's just tell the truth. Choosing yourself sounds cute online until it starts costing you access and relationships, comfort, right? Old versions of yourself. But healing is not always peaceful in the beginning. And I do not pretend that it is. Sometimes healing is disruptive as hell. Sometimes healing means grieving people who are still alive. Sometimes healing means outgrowing environments you've once begged to belong in. Sometimes healing means realizing that you were emotionally surviving and not actually living. And 9 chances out of 10, that realization will make you emotional. Because now you're sitting with the truth of how much of yourself you lost, all while trying to survive. Some of us have been in survival mode for so long that we don't even know what a regulated version of ourselves looks like or feels like, because we know how to overthink, right? You know how to hypervigilantly scan a room. You know how to emotionally shut down, to people please and stay useful and survive disappointment. But peace, rest, softness, what is that? Emotional safety? Like, are you speaking another language? That's why healing feels so disorienting at first. Because your nervous system is trying to learn a new language after being fluent in survival for years. And it is possible to learn another language. Like, I think that's a part that we have to understand. It is possible for us to learn another language. I am proof that it is possible. And, you know, honestly, I think that a lot of emotionally exhausted people are waking up right now. Waking up to the fact that being the strong one is draining them. Waking up to the fact that constant survival isn't sustainable. Waking up to the fact that their body has been screaming for care for years. To the fact that, you know, everybody can't access them endlessly anymore. And that awakening, yeah, I know it looks a little messy before it looks healed. Because before those boundaries become normal, they got to feel uncomfortable. But before rest feels safe, you got to feel a little guilty. Before peace feels natural, it has to feel unfamiliar. But that doesn't mean that you're doing healing wrong. It means that your nervous system is simply adjusting. You are learning a new language. You're learning a new language. It's like you're learning the language of you, right? You're learning the language of you. And that's the beauty of healing, like the ugly beauty in healing, right? The kind of healing where you just sit with yourself honestly, the kind where you can just finally admit that I cannot continue living disconnected from myself. Like, I can't stay here in this anymore. And it might be the first honest conversation that your spirit has had with you in years. So some people are not crazy. Some people are just carrying emotional weight that was never meant for them to carry. I think that we have become so desensitized to emotional suffering that people only take pain seriously once it becomes destructive, and that's backwards. People deserve support before they break down. People deserve rest before burnout destroys them. People deserve care before the nervous system collapses. People deserve softness before they completely emotionally shut down. You deserve it before. We talked about a lot today, y'all. I'm trying to go through my notes. I had so many notes and so many things that I wanted to talk about, but I think I'm just tired. Like, I think I'm just tired of society's narrative. I want us to truly flip the script on this. And, again, if we have to crash out, fuck it, crash out. But before you do, can we redefine what a crash out is? Some of us are just tired because we've had to constantly reshape ourselves, right? Constantly reshaping ourselves for acceptance. But I'm tired of shrinking. I'm tired of silencing myself. I'm damn sure tired of accepting or tolerating disrespect and abandoning my own needs. My spirit is tired of negotiating for basic care. And maybe, just maybe, the urge to crash out isn't always about destruction. Maybe our crash out is just simply saying, I can't keep surviving like this. I can't keep doing this. So when I say fuck it, crash out, that's what I mean. Start telling people, I don't have the capacity for this. I lack the desire for this. I will no longer be doing this. Because if you don't, eventually something is going to break inside of you. So before it does, before you self-destruct and abandon yourself again, before you convince yourself that you have to keep suffering silently, I just really urge you to pause, to breathe, to just ask yourself honestly, do I really want chaos, or do I finally want relief? Because the two are very different roads. And maybe the most healing thing that you can do right now is to stop laughing through your pain long enough to finally listen to what it is trying to tell you. Not every crash out is somebody losing their mind. Sometimes it's about losing your tolerance for surviving without care. And that crash out might be the beginning of everything changing. Now, before we leave, let me leave you all with a little love and light. As always, I am here to remind you to keep breathing through the highs, the lows, and every fucking crash out moment in between. I want you to keep choosing peace, even if it feels out of reach. And know that here at the Self-Care Club, you will always be seen, always valued, and always supported. So don't be afraid to take up space, speak your truth, and make a little room for you to breathe. I love each and every one of you to life. And I am praying that your day is not just amazing, but aligned, intentional, and yes, on purpose, filled with purpose. If you are ready to join our community, we are happy to have you. You can access the Room to Breathe community by going directly to school and just searching Room to Breathe Project. You can hit the link in my bio, or you can visit our website at selfcareclub.org. All ways to access the community. My sis said, breathing through my crash outs. Listen, that's all we can do, sis. And remember that you don't have to do it alone. We are here. We got your back. And fuck it, we'll burn it down together. Let's go. Right, Kel, I got you. We locked in. Let's go. I mean, I'm about due to flip over a few tables, right? So I got you, girl. You ain't got to do it by yourself. Worst case scenario, we got bail money. You know what I'm saying? We raise money for everything else. We get you, girl. We got you. This has been another Room to Breathe podcast, and I look forward to connecting with you all again soon. Remember, tomorrow we will be on YouTube, where we will be having a conversation with the amazing Freebird. Y'all, Freebird made these dope art earrings. So make sure y'all tap in and check out Freebird on social media. Her name on the majority of the platforms, I believe, is Freebie Does It. I will be tagging her in this video because, again, she is the creator for my amazing dope art earrings. And she is just a dope individual altogether. So join me tomorrow on YouTube, you guys, as we have a very honest and real conversation with our girl Free Bird. She is just so amazing, y'all. Like, she is one of my favorite people on this earth. And I'm excited to share her, her story with you. And it's kind of a very behind the scenes conversation, which makes you love her even more. Like, to know her is to love her. You know what I mean? But anyways, I will see you guys tomorrow. Have an amazing day. I am ending on all platforms today. So tap in with me tomorrow, YouTube, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And other than that, go be amazing, everybody. Thank you so much for being here.